Welcome to Selling Out.
Coming up on today's episode.
There's an anxiety around that. You're female, you're young, you're lacking experience.
But they do that because then that sells advertising.
It sells.
Oh, but most of the women will drop out.
What? The dirty section for DVDs and love to judge people.
She was a businesswoman.
She was That's a very
I
broad
think
assumption, Gary. What used to be pencil and paper?
Yeah, we've been drawing on computers for a while.
Oh, wow.
Before we welcome today's guests, a quick thank you to our brilliant sponsors.
Yeah, if you're heading to Brighton and you want to make the trip legendary, quite literally, book your stay at Legends Hotel right on the seafront and just steps away from the city's best nightlife.
They're also the home to some of Brighton's hottest drag shows, so you can sleep, sip and party all in one place.
Book at legendsresortbrighton.com and tell them we sent you.
And if your current headache is less, where am I staying this weekend, and more, how do I buy this house?
Mortgage Medics have you covered. They specialise in straightforward, no drama mortgage advice, whether you're buying your first place, moving up or refinancing.
Their team take the stress out of the process, find the right deal for you, and make sure you're smiling long after you got those keys.
Basically, they're your home-owning headache cure.
So go to mortgage-medics.com and tell them we sent you.
Hello.
Welcome to Selling Out.
Welcome to Selling Out, Rachel and Richard.
Thank you.
How are you
Hello.
doing?
Good. How are you?
We're good. We're very warm.
It's
warm.
very,
But we're
just
good.
for listeners, we are in the middle of a heat wave here in Brighton in the Sussex area and across England. But we are very happy to have you with us here today. We have got an architecture special
Indeed.
with archangels extraordinaires, Richard Zinzan and Rachael Pigg. So, tell us. We always start the podcast with, tell us your pronouns and your letter of the alphabet. Richard.
G.
You're a G.
Yeah, I'm a G. I would say he, him.
Rachel?
I would say I'm somewhere between a B and a Q. And I am she, her.
So you're B and Q.
Being,
Yeah.
You're being...
Yeah, B and Q, exactly.
Okay.
I love it.
not sponsored, but B&Q.
It's all a bit DIY. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
I love it. It's all a bit
Rachel,
DIY. That
I
is
have
good.
never felt so much affinity with something like that. I've never put that together, but I feel that I'm quite a B&Q as well because I'm very queer in my gender and also I'm pansexual, which is under the bi bracket. So we're both B&Qs.
We are.
And we're DIYing it as we go
We'll
along.
have to go shopping together.
I feel there's a lot. I love it. Do you like a shop around DIY, around B&Q? I do.
I don't like being drawn into buying things I know I'll never use. That's the
True,
only
power
problem.
tools.
But I do like
She's not very good
the
with
feeling
power
of
tools.
potential.
You're not good. Are you not good with power tools? Are you a DIYer?
No, I'm not. I'm not that great with
I
power
had to
tools.
rescue her
It's
once.
true.
Did you?
Yeah. From the power tool.
Did you?
I could see her arm coming off and I thought, I can't have that.
I'm loving this. We've gone down a rabbit hole at the start of this episode. Let's try and bring it back to the first question we love to ask everyone because it always brings out some nice things and some hilarious things. What was your first job, Rachel? What was your first ever job?
My first ever job was working for an Oxfam charity shop. And I have to say, if you wanted a really good sort of entry-level experience into different kinds of people, shop politics, there was always Margaret that would never leave the till, for example. The overpricing, the underpricing, just all of it. Shoplifting, that always surprised me.
In a charity shop.
Absolutely.
What?
Yeah, I know.
That is the lowest of low,
It is
isn't
the lowest of low, but it's easy. That's why.
Yeah, well, I guess.
So, yeah, that was
Mind
the first
you,
experience.
In Oxfam, you get some decent stuff. You do.
I'd love a charity shop. So Oxfam was your first. And whereabouts was this? Where were you? Where did you
It
grow up?
was on a Newcastle High Street.
And
So, yeah, even more, real. It was keeping it real there, I can tell you.
You're on the front lines, Rachel.
It was.
Newcastle Oxfam charity shop. And so if Margaret was hogging the till, where were you? What would your jobs include?
My jobs were generally sorting through clothes, putting stuff
Oh,
out.
were you at the back?
Sometimes.
And were you? So what age were you then? Where were we?
I think I was
age-wise?
about probably 17 or something like that, yeah.
Okay. Nice. And where were you in your... Were you a very early adopter of your queer status, or were you figuring that out at the time? Do you have any recollections of that being a thing, or was it just like, I'm having to deal with Margaret in this shop?
No, I would say there was always something in the background, and I suppose I was figuring it out. There used to be a radio show actually by a very strong Geordie woman late at night, and that was probably like the only access that you had to anything queer at the time.
Really?
Yeah, and then Channel 4 put out all these, you know, that season of films that they did, and I think all of those things just started to make more sense.
It's funny that, isn't it? Because we've spoken about this a bit in the podcast, but not really in that much detail. But in growing up in Northern Ireland, we didn't have a huge amount of exposure to, I mean, gay, lesbian, let alone bi, trans, and the rest of the lovely spectrum of our community. But there were things like Channel 4, like those, what is it you used to watch? Eurotrash that used to be on. Oh my God, Eurotrash was the first glimpse into anything that was anyway near, because it was Jean-Paul Gaultier was on it, wasn't he, and stuff?
Yeah.
And it was just madness. I mean, this French guy in a suit, like talking about all, and wonders of all sorts of different arrays of things. And I remember that in Queer as Folk being like this awekening of watching it late at night and pretending I wasn't watching TV, because I was lucky enough to have a TV in my bedroom, little square in my bedroom.
We're a bit older than you, so we have a slightly different...
Not a bit older, are you?
We're,
A bit older.
we are a bit older than you. Yeah.
On the wireless.
Well, we had TV programs that predate those. So like EastEnders' First Kiss.
EastEnders' First Kiss. Someone spoke about that.
Brookeside's First Kiss.
That came after.
That was later.
Yeah, that first lesbian kiss.
Yeah.
No, it's very,
Which
but
was
EastEnders'
shock to the
First
nation.
Kiss was Barry the Barrow Boy.
It was, and
Barry and Colin.
What year was that though? Because I remember being a kid. I think I was a kid when
about 86, 87.
Yeah, I was born in '86, so maybe it was. Yeah,
So we are older than you.
I was a rerun
So-
maybe. And what about?
What's your first job? What was
Richard.
your first job, Richard?
Well, my first job, when I was 12,
Oh, okay.
I worked in a chemist, and because I tell you, it's a bit of a potted history, but I was brought up by my mum, single parent, and she had loads of jobs. And when I wanted something, I kind of had to. I never got any pocket money or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll get a job. So I got a job at the chemist at the bottom of my road, and it was really boring, but it was sort of fun at the same time. So we just took out. And you wouldn't be able to do this today. I don't know how we got away with it, but we used to basically take all the drugs, like take the labels out and put printed labels on them, and that was it.
That was your form of wow.
Bizarre. So I lasted there for about 9 months, and then I moved next door to the newsagents because they paid 10 pence more an hour.
Wow.
And then I got to be on front of stage because I was on the till.
Even in your young teens, you were savvy about your pay increases.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So then, moved there when I was 13 and stayed there for about 3 or 4 years.
And where was this? Whereabouts in the world?
North London.
North London.
Yeah. And then I got a job at the cinema. I worked in the cinema for 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a kind of series of jobs.
Yeah.
Because I was always wanting to, whatever I wanted to buy, I would then work, because it was instilled in me that that's what you had to do. So I always had a good work ethic.
And so take us back to Little Richard then. Little young Richard. What
Little
were the
Richard,
things? Because I think Rachel... Yeah, there is. Little Richard.
Artist,
That's why I said
yeah.
it. Do you want to sing,
Sorry,
do you want to sing one of his songs?
The penny drop. I don't. Yeah. No.
As Rachel said, though, it is that thing whenever we're young. I mean, some of us, we've had some guests on who, came to their queer awakening, LGBTQ plus awakening later in life, and didn't really have those kind of feelings or thoughts or understandings earlier. And whereas I always knew there was something different going on. But did you have the sense of that when you were young? And did it affect you?
I guess not really until I was probably a teenager. I think certainly working in newsagents, you could see the top shelf of the magazines.
Yes.
Do you remember that? Do you remember
Top Shelf,
Yeah,
the
I do
dirty
remember
shelf.
Top Shelf.
Yeah.
And we also had a video
Remember that?
section in the newsagents where people used to hire like blockbusters. But
Yeah.
so there was always a naughty section. And interesting being a young boy, working in there, because I'd noticed the men that bought these magazines and videos or hired the videos out would always hang back and wait for me to serve them. They didn't want Mrs. Hills, who owned the shops, really old lady, owned the shop. She was very judgmental. Purple rinsed hair, glasses, tiny she was.
Do you remember her name?
Well, Mrs. Hills.
Oh, Mrs. Hills. Sorry,
yes.
you said Mrs. Hills.
Yeah.
Mrs. Hills.
You didn't call her anything else.
So wait, she had wait, Mrs. Hills owned the place and had a dirty section for magazines, a dirty section for DVDs, and loved to judge people.
She was businesswoman.
She was
You know. Come on.
Oh my
Don't turn anyone away.
These characters, Margaret, Mrs. Hills.
If someone ever gave her a
Backbone
magazine,
of the
they wanted
nation.
to buy the magazine,
Yeah.
she'd sort of give them a kind of like stare, you know.
Of course
and
she
then
would.
ring it up on the till.
Yeah, of course she would. Yeah, just enough to make them come back, but
Yeah.
also.
And if they bought like the Sun or
Yeah.
Daily Mail, then they'd
They'd
slide
slip
it
it in.
inside.
Yeah.
And just the price sticker was on the top. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, it's mad. I remember in our newsagents, I used to go. Recently, we were back home. My mum had a delivery, shopping delivery, and the guy who delivered what used to own his family used to own the shop, the tuck shop, or the newsagents. And it unlocked this thing where I used to go every weekend to get my Beanos. I used to get comics when I was a kid, and my parents used to buy it. And you're right, like there was always that thing. Obviously, when you're a kid, it looks really high up, but you've got these like magazines that are half covered with plastic, and sometimes they've got like women. The men were probably a later addition, I'd say, into the.
But I think
Yeah.
even when I was in my teen, the gay magazines were always at the top. So
Yeah,
like
as
Gay
well, yeah,
Times,
even like-
Attitude.
yeah.
And they weren't like
Yeah.
Still, yeah.
sex, they were just Gay Times, but
Yeah.
they were all always at the top.
Because they weren't for
And
children.
I think I do remember even those being in plastic at one point.
Yeah.
Were they Gay
Yeah.
Times and Attitude? I think
There
they
was
used
only-
to be in
Yeah.
a sealed plastic
There
cover.
was only Gay Times. Attitude
maybe-
didn't exist when I was
Yeah.
younger.
Yeah.
I remember Gay
Until later.
Times, yeah.
There used to be like Naturist magazine,
Naturist.
so that was like not porn, but clearly it was. No. That was on the top shelf. Because someone used to buy that. It's funny how you remember these things.
Was that next to the National Geographic?
Probably.
Naturist. God, someone would get a surprise if they thought, "Oh, Dad's really into that. I'll buy him that."
Misfiled on the wrong shelf.
Because most of the... why have we got onto this? Anyway, most of the magazines were, lady content, weren't they? There wasn't anything else.
Yeah.
I love
So-
that.
Yeah,
lady
but not
content.
for the ladies.
No, not
No,
for the
not
ladies
for the
at
ladies.
all.
Well,
Thing,
some
isn't it,
ladies.
when you think about
Well,
it.
some ladies may have...
Intended for the male gaze, I would say, but
Yeah.
You ask how we've got onto this. This will happen throughout this
Fine.
book. We
Yes,
always
exactly.
go down rabbit holes of things, and
It's a
you know
level
what?
rabbit
It's
hole.
amazing seeing the way because we've quite a few episodes in, and you get some things where it's amazing what some people react to. We had a lovely finance special with Paula and Bobby. And Paula was recounting her times when she was working in the finance department in I think it was her dad's company, wasn't it? And she was doing the pay slips, and she talked about those pay slips that come with the dotted edges, and like obviously the accounts department do it and hand them out. That clip of that went viral. People's reminiscing of those
was
clips
viral
because
clip.
you don't get those anymore. You don't get the little pay slip
yeah.
papers. And her point was, I'm going to go and hand these out because I did the work for it. And not the head of accounts.
Yeah.
But what I would have loved just there is if you had to just actually turn around and said my first job was in B&Q, because that would have been just absolutely
sorry.
hilarious. No, but obviously it wasn't.
I
But it
could
would have been
go
Should we
quite.
cut and go back?
If I
We
could.
would cut and go back.
Maybe I could design a B&Q. That's like the way forward.
So, moving on from newsagents and charity shops, where are we now? Talk to us about the fabulous Archangels. So what was it? It's obviously you are the founder and owner of Archangels, Richard.
Correct.
Tell us what...
First of all, tell us how you got into
what-
your role.
Being an architect.
Yeah, being an architect.
Well, so after I finished A-levels, I went and did an art foundation course. So foundation art and design. So that was right, explore what, like. And actually, I wasn't intending to be an architect at all. I wanted to be a fine artist. So I did fine art painting as my specialism in the course. Applied to university, didn't get in, or to art school, didn't get in to do a degree in fine art. I was like, oh my God, that's the end of my world kind of thing. Kind of slightly devastated by it. And then I landed up not going to university at all. So I got a job in the National Art Library, which is located inside the Victoria and Albert Museum. and I worked there for 3 years. And whilst I was there, I had access to all this material that you don't normally get access to, and as a member of the public. And I kind of found my way, and that because I'd got a kind of interest in space. My mum used to get really annoyed with me because she'd come home from work and I'd moved all the furniture around, for example, to like change the room. So there was always that in me. But when I was at the V&A, my immediate boss was a former chief librarian of the RBA library, and I used to speak to him. And then I just got into architecture, and I thought, I'll apply to architecture school. And I did, and I got into all 5 that time. So I was 22 before I went to university, and then so I was quite a bit later than everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, still, it's weird, isn't it, whenever people say that's later, because obviously architecture is it takes a long time to train, isn't it? Takes a long time,
yeah.
So I guess 22
I used to get called the old man. They were only 4 years younger than me. Yeah.
It is weird that I think, because I think when people see people going, even when they're a year behind, and you are still so young, but at that point in your life, it feels that those people are so much older. It's really weird, but actually right now we'd be like, no, you're all kind of the same age. But it's weird, isn't it? When you think about when you're that age, you're like, oh.
We've spoken about this a bit because Gary didn't go to university, and I did, and we've spoken to different guests and how that impacted them, especially when it about their identity and stuff, and testing new things, and testing out who they are and that kind of thing, away from home and away from that. But yeah, I went to Art Foundation, and I remember I'd taken a year out between A-levels and the Art Foundation, and actually it was the year that I met Gary. So had I have gone straight to Art Foundation, I would never have met Gary all those years ago. But he was one of the ones that encouraged me to go and pursue the art dream. Because I guess it's that thing at the time, it's maybe you thought this when you were wanting to be a fine artist, it's a very visceral feel. It's a thing that you do for yourself and your creativity and your expression. It's not something you do for money, because you know that a life of an artist is probably not going to be the most successful. So it's a strange thing, but I remember being that year behind as well whenever I finally went to Manchester to study fashion and thought I was going to be a fashion designer, and everyone thought you were older. Yeah,
well, I think that by the time spent at the V&A, I matured, because you do mature quite quickly. I think of that between those ages.
You do.
And I guess I was ready to go to university then. Kind of knew I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And so I got into 4 schools in London and Brighton, and I chose Brighton because I lived in London, so I just thought, go to Brighton. Went through architecture school. And
so that's the Brighton link then? You got into the Brighton school and you moved?
Yeah, 30 years ago, 1996, I came to Brighton and never left.
So you came and lived here while you studied here then, obviously?
Yeah. Because the University of Brighton is the School of Architecture.
Yeah.
So I did all my education there. Year back in London to work for a small practice in Camberwell. Loved it. It was the best.
Yeah.
It was so good. I'll come on to a little thing about that. But no intention of starting my own practice, but it just sort of happened naturally. Well, I kind of forced, really, in a way. Financial crash in 2008-09. I was losing my job in the practice that I was in because there was just no work, and just saw an opportunity with someone that was working on their own, and they said, "Oh, can you help me out? Do some bits and pieces, just small stuff, nothing major." And that was the catalyst, really, that then started the kind of talk about starting your own business.
So we'll get into more of Archangels and what it is doing today, and how the origins of it. But what got you into architecture, Rachael?
I think, well, partly context, partly interest. My father was a civil engineer, so I was already aware of the built environment, actually. And I also had a boyfriend at the time whose father was an architect, so again, all these things come together. And I'd always been interested in the arts, and drawing and designing. And I think, really, when I look back, it all sort of made sense that I would go down the architecture route, because it's also about people. Design is about people, and I was always interested in people as well. So it sort of ticked a lot of boxes, I would say. And I think anybody who's in any creative field, there's a part of you that can't imagine not having that in your life. You just, if you think of doing anything else, you always come back to the same thing.
Yeah.
It's always about design.
And I suppose like being an architect, you are changing people's lives. So when you do like things for their homes, you're really changing how their life is. You know, it's kind of it's a big thing.
Well, how they live it. Yeah.
And you're creating
absolutely.
homes for people's family, for memories for a long time.
And I remember going on a university field trip, actually. And obviously I was already studying architecture at that point, but there's an architect called Hermann Hertzberger, and he was designing very people-orientated places, and that could be workplaces, that could be housing. And he was a bit of a forerunner, really, to co-working spaces. And all of that way of thinking, and just feeling really inspired, and just, properly understanding how the built environment is about people. It's not about ego, it is about people. And I think I've just sort of used that as a bit of an internal compass throughout my career trajectory.
I love that, and I think that there is. I remember reading I was speaking about this recently, actually, to Judith, actually one of our clients, about the difference between just parts of the world in the architecture and the standard. I'm talking more about the majority of households, for example, and how the UK rated against others in Europe in terms of their glazing ratio per building, and how that affects your mental health and affects your these things that are fundamentally architectural decisions and design decisions that affect your actual way of life and living, based on how much window space you've got, how much your home is dedicated to having outside space or integration with the surroundings.
And buildings can bring joy. The spaces we live in, they bring joy, or you are emotionally affected, as you say, by the spaces you inhabit. And I think architects have quite a responsibility.
Yeah, there's many
sense.
layers to architecture.
Many layers,
Many people won't even realise. It's not just the design of a building, for an aesthetic appeal. There's so much that goes into it, but you're driven by other things, policies, planning policies, though you mentioned sort of glazing ratios. Some of that is also driven by regulations, technical design and all that kind of stuff. It's somewhat boring, but we don't really talk about it. It's not sexy. So
it's sexy to me, Richard.
Tell me.
Oh my
Tell me
God,
about your policies.
I would have brought the building regs with me.
Oh my God, I love a building reg.
And then was it the early 1900s or the late 1800s where they had the window tax and everyone was breaking up their windows?
Yeah.
But then again, if you travel around the world and how architecture responds to community, to environment, to the people, to their ways of living, to their culture. I mean, it's fascinating. It's a live story playing out all of the time.
A question I have then for both of you, because I don't know, but I think I have the assumption that the world of architecture is quite a is it a heterosexual male-dominated space? Is it how has that been? Well, how was that whenever you were studying, I guess, and getting into architecture and your first roles in architecture, and how has that changed? I guess, have you ever felt the need to wear a straitjacket per se?
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Many times. I think we're in the construction sector.
True.
So architecture it is construction, so it's building sites, and everybody knows the reputation that that side of the business has. So when we go on site, and particularly when I was younger and new, just like Rachel will tell you, being for me, my sexuality wasn't an issue, as in I didn't want it to affect my job, because it shouldn't. I felt intimidated just because I was in a building site with a kind of masculine environment, that typical kind of, that wolf whistle type environment, not particularly pleasant. But I think as time has gone on, we have developed our relationship with builders and we're quite open, we're not hiding anything anymore, because quite frankly, what's the point? And if we would hear anything on a site, we would call it out. I think when we were younger, probably not. We've always been, I think in more recent years, we've had the benefit of working with like-minded builders and contractors that respect who we are and we respect who they are, because we see it as a collaborative approach. It's not just architect up here and builder down there and client over there, and it's a team. It's a team effort, and within that team you've got to respect everyone,
absolutely,
for whoever they are. And so I think we've worked quite hard to make our environments safe.
Yeah, and that's the reason we're doing this podcast, and the reason we're speaking to queer people in these different industries is what we're finding is you are the people who are making the change in a lot of those circumstances, and having that kind of ability to be a queer-owned business and have that say almost, and that authority to be able to change those attitudes and conversations.
But Rachel has it, doubly bad because she's female.
Well, so when
Rachel.
I started in architecture, it was, you have to imagine you're going to site. There's an anxiety around that. You're female, you're young, you're lacking experience. That's even before you get onto what letter of the alphabet you are in terms of sexuality. Yeah. So you have all these hurdles in front of you. And that brings with it an anxiety. And then on top of that, you are, especially as a woman, trying to tread this line between being friendly, being professional, but not opening the door to being hit on while you're setting out toilets, which has happened to me.
Rachel.
And just that general level of how do I navigate this? Before you can even say, right, I'm just here doing my job, which is really all I want to be able to do. But I think the privilege now of being older and with the people we work with is that they call it out as well. We don't just call it out. And because we're so aware of the history and of what's gone before, we are now in a position where we can hold a space fairly and, I think it has changed, it is changing, and that is a good thing. I think there's still the odd time, particularly for me, where you get mistaken as, what, are you the architect?
Yeah.
Or there's a woman on site,
God.
and then the site foreman saying, that's the architect.
Yeah.
And, it's just that sort of thing all the time, isn't it?
And so when you were in university, was there many women studying architecture?
There was actually, it was probably about 50-50.
Oh, wow.
But we were told, and I remember being told, most of the women will drop out.
What?
Wow.
And there was an expectation that they wouldn't last the distance.
Do you know what? These things, assumptions and expectations,
Absolutely.
have come up so much in what we've been talking about, and in my kind of estimation of myself as well, that kind of thing. You're assumed certain things because of certain things, and that expectation then in some ways guides your ability to perform, because actually
absolutely.
the story and the narrative they've given you there is,
Absolutely.
it might be 50-50, but it's likely this is going to happen.
And also just naturally, psychologically, a part of our brain is directed towards that energy that's consumed by having to be hypervigilant about what's going to happen next. Am I going to have to, am I going to be blindsided by something? And that is just, it doesn't really help you perform as you would like to perform.
Yeah, I think that we had I would say 40-60 split, 40% being female on my course. There was a bit of a dropout. I think most of my female peers and friends who have become architects have had their career shortened and then have to restart it again, because if they want to have children, there's that factor that they have to. Obviously, it takes a bit of time to become an architect in the first place, and then you want to practice, and because you really learn. The more you're doing the job, the more you're becoming experienced and become senior. But obviously, biological clocks are ticking away. So a lot of my girlfriends have had to stop their career, have their children, and then get back into it. That's quite challenging, you know. And the men don't
very
do that.
challenging.
Of course they don't.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? That's what's the challenge is when it comes to, like, you know, there's all sorts of things around Europe and around the world, mostly in Scandinavian countries, where there is shared load in terms of having children, and that then supports exactly that, the economic support for people to stay in their industries, and also not the expectation of having just that responsibility on the.
I think it plays a part in that not being seen, and because you go to site and then one of the builders might assume you're not the architect because you're female.
Yeah.
Because you're not seen as much because you've had to stop your career in order to have children, etc.
But then also, I guess it's that assumption, because we talked about this a lot, and we were at something recently where Sarah Willingham, who now owns the I360 in Brighton and was famous for Dragon's Den. She was talking about a time earlier on in her career where she went into a boardroom as the head of, was it Pizza Express at the time?
Yeah, they were doing some big negotiation.
They were doing negotiation with another, so one of those big boardroom where the other team was on the other side with their legal team, and she was on this side with hers. She arrived late into the room, and it was just her that was left to arrive. And when she came in, the guy on the other side, the leader of that team or whatever, said, "Oh, lovely, I'm gasping. Mine's a coffee with a sugar," or something along those lines. And she just went, without missing a beat, "Great, anyone else want anything?" Went over and made it, came back, gave it to him. He wasn't paying much attention, obviously. And then she sat down in front of him and said, "Right, shall we start then?" And she said he could have dropped through the floor. And she told us publicly that. So, but it's interesting because there is, you make it, and that is the point, that it's you can be blindsided and it can make your stomach drop whenever someone treats you that way. But also, there are times when it can be turned into this superpower of, actually, you've underestimated me, and this is what I know myself and my worth, and this is what I'm doing and bringing.
What I have noticed, which I think is a really positive thing, is that when I'm in those situations, and it actually happened fairly recently again, if I am with a male colleague or consultant or builder, they sometimes jump in to call it out before I get a chance to. And that is definitely a shift in the landscape. Yeah. And that's a very healthy shift.
Yeah. And that would probably be something to do with our relationship with those contractors. Yeah. And some of our contractors have female team members. So we've got female electrician with one crew, decorators, plumbers, carpenters, female. Which is unusual. And I was at site a few weeks back, and a delivery came from, bathroom company or something, and only the electricians were on site, and so it was Georgie and her boss, and this massive bath came off the lorry. You know what deliveries are like these days? They just deliver them. They don't take them in for you. They're just dropped on the curbside. And Georgie came out, and I was there, and I took photos of this, and the delivery driver literally was like, looked at her as if to say, "Well, you're not going to be able to lift that." He didn't say it.
Yeah, but looked at
her like that. And I thought, let's see how this plays out. And she got one end of it, got the other end of her boss, and just lifted it off. And you could see this guy's face going, "Oh, right, she's, a woman on site. She's lifting and, doing the male job kind of stuff." It was really interesting. And I said to Georgia at the time, I said, "You must be used to that." She went, "Oh, all the time." And she said, "But it's so much fun when you just sort of step in and surprise them like that, because they just don't expect it."
But and you know what? I find this fascinating because, part of my gender exploratory years in the recent few years has been about, I've just been reading a lot, because this way my brain is trying to understand, the social context, the historical context, all of that kind of thing. And it's fascinating when you start to read about, the biology of the genders and how social expectations and social constructs of gender actually affect exactly those things. So it's the assumption of how strong a woman is, or based on their upbringing, but actually it goes right back to the expectations of, there's a book called Through Like a Girl, and there's also myths on gender, and it's about how bringing girls up as, you know, this is the likely outcome for you, and boys up, whether it's intentional or not, it's framed, and it means that, for example, boys are more encouraged to go into sports, and if they show sporting behaviour, they go into that, whereas if girls show sporting proclivity, they don't really get pushed for that. And in the past, I mean, things are obviously changing, but the more things change, the more they see that, of course, women are super strong, of course men can be completely sensitive, you know, all these things are shifting because of the fact that we are changing social perceptions. I mean, you've got female Olympians who are breaking records constantly, and then across transgender you've got people who are surpassing biological kind of expectations, and then you come down to plumbers and electricians, and people think, oh, you're not going to lift that, are you, love? It's like, well, okay.
I think also it's really moving forward, it's about representation of all genders and all sexes in all aspects of life, and because then that sets the precedent, that sets the, actually I could do that. And I actually yesterday on the way home, I haven't told you this, bumped into some clients, and they, lovely ex-clients, they invited me into their house to show me the shed that they built. And they have a little girl that I last saw 5 years ago, and the mother said to me, oh, she wants to go into design, she wants to be an interior designer, and I think that might have had something to do with you.
Yes.
And I thought, that's it, exactly. It's just seeing someone performing a role that you can...
Absolutely.
And role models.
And that's the thing, and you know, as you say, the normal view or the assumption of a building site or of a this or of that is this, but actually the more that changes, and we're seeing it now, but you know, there's certain things in the world that are pulling things back from people being able to do what they want to do, but as that shifts and changes, the possibilities for kids to be happy in the things that they want to do is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've got a couple of questions, actually, where this has all come from.
Yeah.
So, for both of you, so 2 questions. So the first question is, can you remember, Rich, we'll go with you first, your first project, and what it felt like completing that?
Oh, wow.
Because I think it's quite, talking about all this design and what,
Okay, so the very first built project I did was with the practice in Camberwell. Very small practice, husband and wife team. Loved my job there, and didn't want to leave. But my very first built job there wasn't a building. It was inside of a building, and it was the post box, the letter, when people got post in those days, this kind of shelving unit in the reception of Camberwell School of Art. And I had to sort of, it's really minor, but it's quite, when you see it built, and it's in a public space like that, and you know you've drawn that, and then it's in there. It's like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. That was the very first, but the most joyous one was the next project I did, and it was a little garden studio for. Actually, I just remembered a couple of queers.
Literally trailblazer from the start. Yeah, a couple of queers wanted a garden shed.
We're pulling it all out.
It does sound very queer.
It was for their art collection. They were for like furniture collectors and stuff. So it was just like this little. It wasn't that big, probably the size of this room. And I had to design it around a tree, and you know, but my boss very kindly sort of just left me to it. So that, and I was, you know, I didn't really know what I was doing. But we didn't leave me entirely, but you know, I had a lot of responsibility, and it was just this tiny garden studio in Camberwell, and for these queers. So maybe that's a poignant thing.
Wow! And just on that the husband and wife duo in Camberwell that you went and worked for, were you out to them, or was that even a thing to discuss?
So I'd been there. I started there in the September. And at Christmas we had an office party, so there was only 5 of us in the practice, and so it was husband and wife and 3 employees, and they had this office party. They invited loads of clients and so we had a few drinks, and my boss, she liked to drink, she was really good fun, and I never told anyone because I didn't need to. I didn't feel, but probably I was being a bit safeguarding myself.
Yeah, sure.
And at this party, she had a few wines, and she called me over and she went, "So Richard, you know, you can tell me anything." And I knew what she was asking. I was like, "What do you mean?" She went, no, if there's anything you want to tell me, I'm here for you. And I thought,
Lovely.
nice, but I'm not doing it, right? Because, and we've discussed this many times. At the time, I just thought, I don't want to be the one that has to announce I'm gay. You haven't asked John, who's straight, or Luca, who's straight, to announce that they're straight. So why do I have to announce my sexuality?
I think
I was really quite angry about that at the time. But as time has gone on, and I'm talking, this is like 26 years ago, time has changed. Things have changed. I felt it wasn't necessary for me to do that. But when I think about it now, she was just being kind. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't really see it as that.
Yeah.
I was holding on to my kind of like, how dare you?
Don't you think that? And I think loads of people can relate to that. I definitely can. My dad actually said it to me the night before I did speak to them, because I'd been dating Gary for a year and it was secret and stuff. We were in love. It wasn't secret. Obviously, we weren't hiding it because of any sort of shame at the time. It was just we were in love and we were like having a great time, and then it just got to that point where we had to. It was like we were lying after that. So then we did that. My dad said the same thing. But it is interesting that you say that, because I always go back to intention. So what is the intention of the person and what is their realm they're in? And that was obviously her invitation to you, but also it's not her, like it's your thing to do, isn't it? It's yours.
Yeah. But more recently, we took on a member of staff. And was interviewing them, and they just openly said it.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like a moment I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because you, as a younger person, same age that I was actually when my former boss asked me, feel so comfortable to just say it in general conversation, and it's just part of the conversation. There's no kind of moment.
Yeah. And I think we have to recognise that does happen.
Young people, we've come so far that it's just not everywhere, but it's come so far in some people's lives that they feel comfortable just to say it. And it's important to recognise those parts where it has really improved. There are obviously loads of things now, and it's taken on a different thing with different parts of our community, with the trans community and stuff. But that ability to be open about that with younger, And
Rachel, your first project. Yeah.
Well, I think if you ask any architect or designer what their first project was, you start thinking, well, do you mean a whole project? Do you mean
kind of
my
like your first
whole
kind of
project?
one where you
really did it? The first one was responsibility.
Where you felt it was your first,
Probably the first project that was entirely under my own responsibility was designing a bar just off Leicester Square. Wow. That was actually in Time Out. I was very proud, very proud. And there were lots of reasons why it was both very stressful but also really good fun, because I could then have I remember my sister and I had a joint birthday in there as well. So it was great being able to design a bar.
And then use the space.
Use the space. And I had to go to the National Portrait Gallery to get some pictures to put in the toilets. And in the gents, I had postcards from the National Portrait Gallery of George Best, William Shakespeare, and I can't remember who the other one was, but I basically framed them and put them above each urinal.
So they could
And so all my friends, when they came out the toilets, were like, who did you wee in front of? And it was great. It was great. And being able to do little things like that,
Some people might think that's a little bit gay.
Well,
queering the space.
I was queering the space. Clearly queering.
Who can come home from a bar in Leicester Square? Did you say, or Leicester?
It was just off Leicester Square.
Who can come home and say I pissed in front of Shakespeare?
There we go.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think you both. So those were my two. I had two questions. The second one, the most proudest one. You and the one with the tree. You talked about that, and you also talked that was in Time. Or do you have another pride moment?
The proudest one, though.
One that you specifically remember.
I think I am quite proud of that project. I think there have been several that have had aspects to them that I'm really proud of. Just really where you've brought something in that has created real moments of joy for everybody, from the client to the builder to, and seeing it being made is magic. It is a form of magic. And I've never really got past that, and I think that's one of the motivations of this job.
We talk about this as well, like the moments of joy are obviously design moments of joy, but there's the joy when a client is overwhelmed by what you've delivered. Essentially, you exceeded their expectations. Yes, designing and building stuff is stressful. It's expensive. It's stressful. Relationships. Oh my God, we have relationships with people all the time. Long relationships. Not people we choose to have relationships with, in that sense. But we have them. We get them broiled in their lives. It's astonishing sometimes, isn't it?
It's also I also really love it. Though.
Yeah, but when a client says to you, "Thank you, you've really exceeded my expectations," that is like, that gets you. And I think that's a kind of, particularly in the field that we're in, because we're mostly residential, you don't tend to get the same reaction in kind of larger commercial projects or such like. But when clients appreciate and value what you've delivered, that's really nice.
We have this exactly the same thing. I mean, I've said to Gary, my career was in the fashion industry, so I was in the design world at luxury goods and things, and working with design teams and product teams and things. Always thought I was going to be a designer, but ended up being much more in the creative commerce kind of bridge in collection merchandising. But I always, now that I'm in GoSucceed full time, and I've been with Gary for 2 years, properly 2.5 years, that feeling, and I never thought I would have this with GoSucceed. When I first joined, I was like, I'll do the creative, I'll do the marketing stuff, I'll do the aesthetics, I'll make sure everything looks good for franchising and for getting us set up. And I now run, pretty much the franchise of Sussex, of Brighton and Hove. And the joy of having clients who have achieved something in the 6 months they've been with us, or the year, it's just, in fact, it's incredible. It's like the most fulfilling thing I've ever, people saying, you've changed my life, you've changed the way I've done things. And I guess we do that from a business perspective, but in terms of where they live and what they do and where, it's incredible.
Well, the clients I bumped into yesterday, they were saying we still are in awe every time we come back from holiday. We still are slightly surprised by how we feel in this space. And it's just that. It's knowing that you've brought joy and ease to somebody's life. And, there have been times when it's like clients have said, but this means I won't see you again. Not until the defects inspection in 12 months' time.
You say, hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
What defects?
What defects?
So we should also, we talked a bit about queering the space there, but in terms of, you've worked obviously with clients from the community, and you also have Outwardly Creative, which brings together creatives, and that's a big thing. I've been a guest. Cherry Bomb's been a guest. How is that big? Because we always ask guests who come on here about, what needs to change in the industry, whether it's the creative industries, whatever industry they're in, what needs to change from our community perspective to make people who are aspiring to be in it feel like they can be part of it. And I guess you're doing Outwardly Creative as a part of that, but also being a very open agency firm, architecture firm.
Yeah, I guess, living in Brighton and practicing in Brighton, I think obviously we're going to attract same-sex couples business-wise. But we, I think one time we had quite, the same-sex couples outweighed the
straight couples. You kind of they're a minority. We don't talk about them. The straights.
And that's quite. I think it's quite unusual. But I think we create a kind of safe space for them. So we get referrals, it's not intentional as such. It's just who we are. I think we understand and we listen.
But but I think that you're saying about queering the space, that is also partly because of having a queer perspective, and you're aware. You feel it when a space is safe. You appreciate it when a space is safe. And so you just have a sort of inherent awareness, I think, of people, and is everyone feeling okay? And, let everyone have their voice.
And we wanted to sort of have that in a kind of business sense as well. And hence, outwardly creative, we created about just over a year ago. I think we all know going networking is quite a straight environment. In many sense of the terms, it can be quite boring and dull.
Straight laced and straight, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I think a lot of women feel the same way. And as a gay man, it's sometimes challenging going into those spaces. And I guess when I think about it, I do sort of put the straitjacket on, even now, you know, just to make sure that I'm safe in that space.
It's always a different colour to what everyone else is wearing. So
It's a sparkly straitjacket.
A little hint.
A little hint of design.
It is odd though, because I ironically, even though I was in the fashion industry for 15 years, I felt, now that I've kind of explored a bit more, I felt I was definitely masking in both senses of the words, in terms of my gender and stuff. And it was that thing of the norm of, even though it's an industry that's affiliated with, you know, you'd assume there's loads of gays in kind of fashion and things. It is that feeling of the space that you're in and the environment, and it's a lot to do with your own perspective of your own comfort. Yeah. Safety obviously comes first, but then also your own comfort with yourself and your identity and how you present.
I mean, with outwardly, we wanted it to be a bit broader than just our own sector. There are bodies within our sector. There's one in London called Freehold, and Freehold has over 1,000 members from the queer community. It's all to do with the built environment.
Brilliant.
So they get together and they do. It's very corporate, though, isn't it?
yeah, it's quite corporate.
I mean, that has its place, and that's absolutely fine, and we're members of that. But we wanted something that was a bit broader, so that other queer creatives could come together and just have a shared experience of what's going on out there for people that are queer and creative in business, whatever their thing is. We wanted to kind of give a platform for people to promote that, and just be in a nice, safe environment to do so. So it's networking with a bit of a twist, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I think also, although there are communities in and around Brighton and the region, I think we all tend to be in our own little silos. And I think partly with outwardly, the idea is to just bring everyone together and just widen that lens of support. And you know, hopefully we are starting to do that.
Yeah, it's a great event.
Yeah, I think it's a very different type of networking event. Yeah. You know, because obviously the last one, obviously we had Cherry Bomb there and all the different speakers you have. I like that there's no rush on that, because obviously a lot of them are very timed, and I get it, because obviously they're running these networking events. Whereas, you know, you really dig deep into that speaker who's there.
It's
so it's like,
it.
you know, 30 minutes, so you really get to understand more, which I think is very unique in what Creative does, which is what I love. That bit, it's just a little bit different, because obviously you hear speakers at networking events and it's 10 minutes. Normally it's a 10-minute, right? Whereas, you know, it can go on for 40, 50, and it's just beautiful. And every single person at every one has always been so engaged with what's going on the stage, which I think is just different, which is what I love, because you're telling other people
something right there.
You are, and it's in a lovely gallery in Brighton as well.
You know, it's that. Yeah,
it's in a lovely
gallery. The story
gallery.
is really important. Is like, you know, it was important when you were keynote that we wanted to tap into the story so that people could understand where Cherry came from. That was really important for us, and I think it was important for you as well. It went down really well.
I got really lovely feedback. I got really lovely feedback in the room, and it was really nice. Tell us about the next one. When can people come along?
The next one is 15th of July in Helm Gallery, centre of Brighton. We've got the keynote speaker as Fox Fisher,
Love Fox.
co-founder of Trans Pride, and so many other things I can't list.
Hugely talented.
And that's going to be quite exciting. Again, it's about a bit of journey, and there's going to be sort of live action screen printing happening at the same time. We're going to have a couple of creative encounters there.
So that's going to be that's very soon. So get your tickets.
So that's in about in about 5 weeks' time. Yeah.
Oh, she did that soon.
Yeah. From this episode, it'll be
from this episode.
From this episode going out. From this episode going out.
Get your tickets. They do sell out.
Where can you get the tickets? On Eventbrite?
On Eventbrite, or you can go to outwardlycreative.co.uk and get a link to the Eventbrite that way.
And where can people find Archangels? How do they best get in touch with you if they want to design a new queer space in a garden around a tree?
Well, I guess the best place is via the website, aaarchitects.co.uk, at any networking event, outwardly creative networking event. We're based in Preston Circus in Brighton.
Yeah.
So.
And last, we always like to...
I just have one question for the last
Gary's
question.
usually wrapping up, yeah?
Inspired.
So no, I am normally wrapping up,
Yeah.
and I know we try to keep it.
I
So
could
for
talk
the
all day
algorithm.
to
I
you.
could talk
I
all
love
day,
it. We
but
always
just a
do
quick
this. We get told
question, and
off.
it's probably one that's probably can't be quick. But how do you see things changing? Because obviously all this rise of AI and technology and all of that, is that kind of changing how you design? Because obviously probably a lot of it was done on pen and paper or pencil and paper, and now it's kind of all digital. Is it changing it a lot?
That's a
Well,
very
I
broad
think
assumption, Gary.
we've
What
been-
used to be pencil and paper?
Yeah, we've
Are you
been
digital?
drawing on computers for a while.
Quite a while.
But
Well,
you know
to the
what I mean.
1900s,
Yeah.
Gary.
we do still sketch on
No, we just sketch and then
No, we
paper
sketch, yeah.
as well. I think fundamentally, yes, AI can present ideas, people can present ideas, clients can use AI to, I suppose, drill down their brief further. But really, at the end of the day, you're working with a building that has all its own quirks, hidden foibles, and it's a team of people that make a building happen.
Yeah.
And you can't really do it without
No.
actual people.
No, you can't.
AI
So-
can assist the process as long as you are controlling it. I think that's across the board of any industry, really. But essentially, as Rachel says, AI can't build a building.
No.
Obviously there are some 3D printed buildings out there, but it's not on a mass scale. And when we're doing refurbishments and extensions to existing housing stock, that's quite challenging to do under
But
an
also,
AI building or whatever it is.
So, Richard, we set out to literally draw an infographic of the building process, didn't we? And we're still, it's still ongoing. But it actually made us realise as well how involved and how complicated it is to create a building, and all the processes and the people and the psychology and the law and the everything. And I think you need humans to guide you through that.
Absolutely.
I think with everything though, the more this kind of AI wave gets washed over us, and let's be honest, it's being pushed on us by the billionaires who are set to to profit from it. But there is that thing of, it's almost like tech feudalism right now. People are saying that everything is we're to become dependent on these cloud services, these AI, these things. And we always say with businesses on our level, AI is a tool. It's been around for a long time. They've used it in medical research for a long time. It's just a data processor. It's the evolution of computer. But it feels like it's come into this social space where it's like, oh, it's going to do everything now. And actually, what's lovely about what we've talked about is, and with lots of different industries, it's about relationships. It's about humanity.
Absolutely.
It's about solving problems that are human problems. Yeah. It's not about improving efficiency to the point of smoothness where we don't have any of that beautiful creativity happening.
Yeah, it has its place and it will have its place.
Yeah.
But nothing takes that human element
I think
away.
that's it. I suppose it does things like where you can get people virtual so they can obviously maybe visualize it a bit
but that's
better.
been around
It's been
before.
around for a while, I suppose.
It doesn't give you feeling, does it?
No, it doesn't give you feeling, no, but it's kind of like, being able to...
So as we wrap up, we could talk all day, but what we always like to end on some advice to bring it back to the start of the top of the episodes, where imagine little Richard and little Rachel. What advice would you give to someone, either yourself when you were that age, or someone who is interested in your industry and is maybe queer, maybe not, but struggling with that? What advice would you give to a younger self, a younger person?
Gosh. You go first, Rachel.
I would say to myself, I think, trust yourself, trust your journey, and know that actually it doesn't matter, and nobody really cares. And just, I think also with being queer comes a lot of self-growth and awareness, and actually I would say that is a sort of positive side to realising. that you are on that spectrum.
It's so true. I think I always say being queer is a superpower. It made me solve problem. It makes you think in a different way because the world is not laid out for you, or it's not structured around what you do. So you break the rules and you break the mold and things.
It's quite challenging. I think it depends when you're brought up as well, what era you were. You experienced those. I mean, we grew up in the 80s, 90s, and we were hit by Section 28 and the AIDS crisis and all that. It's very negative. So it was kind of like, to be queer, gay is like really negative, like because you're going to die. Of course, we didn't, but nowadays I think it's much, much easier, or not easier, that's the wrong word. It's there's more opportunity to be yourself from a very young age, and I think that's great. I think that's amazing. Just when that young lad we interviewed, and he just said it in the conversation, I was like, this is amazing, we've come so far. So to myself, as a younger self, I would say have that, have more confidence to be yourself. I think growing up I was quite overshadowed by what was in the media, and so that sort of made me feel differently to who I really was, and that I couldn't be who I wanted to be. So I think that be your authentic self, and as long as you're kind, don't hurt anyone.
Be kind. That's the point. Do you know what? That is the thing, and we always come back to this. It's obviously, like I say, safety is paramount, and whenever we're growing up where you can't be yourself. But that's why I'm so, activism is so important within the community, because actually it's us being loud and vocal and obvious about it that we make the change.
And be respectful. Respect others because they may have a different opinion. Listen to them. There's all of that, isn't there? You have to.
I would also say trust in yourself and the community rather than the media.
Yeah.
Because just like you were saying, the media can send you off into anxiety and fear when actually the people around you often are not anything like that.
No. We've said this in previous episodes. It's like the people who have this transphobia, this hatred, sit down and talk to a person, because it gets spun so much and you get these statistics that dehumanize people. Sit down, have a conversation. I'm completely about that. Open and listen. Yeah.
And why because I always remember watching that thing, a guy talking about the media, and the big thing, what is it the media are doing? They're selling advertising. And what's the biggest thing that they can get more people watching is by creating, people don't really want to watch like really happy news stories or whatever. They want to see things and they want to stare up. But they do that because then that sells advertising. It sells,
Well,
and it's selling, right?
It gets some attention,
press.
right?
It gets attention.
It's like the office gossip.
Yeah. Exactly.
It gets them attention.
But which means it's selling advertising, because it's an interesting thing. So
But also love sells as well, and intrigue, because traders, everyone talks about that, don't they? And that's intrigue. Although that is probably
the traders.
The traders. It's been so lovely to have you in today.
Thank you very much.
And we look forward to Outwardly Creative and all of your future ventures with Archangels.
Well,
Thank you very
we look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah.
We will be
Thank
there.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.